رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال: السلام عليك يا فاطمة. فقلت: عليك السلام. قال: إني أجد في بدني ضعفا. فقلت له: أعيذك بالله يا أبتا من الضعف. فقال: يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به. فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به، وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال: يا أماه، إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء، فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي: يا أماه، إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جدا. السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال: السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال: يا فاطمة، إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال: وعليك السلام يا أخي ووصيي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت: السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال: وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال: اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. آل محمد. فقال الله عز وجل: يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقتما سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل: يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. صلوا على محمد. فقال جبرائيل: يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله: نعم، قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله، العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك: وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله عليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله: إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس وأهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. محمد وآل محمد. فقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله، أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله: يا علي، والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه، ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه، ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا، وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. Surah Al-Fatiha for all the marhumin, especially those for Haj Agha Mujahid Rezavi and all the mu'minin and mu'minat. Al-Fatiha.
There is a request for Surah Al-Mubarakatul Fatiha for the marhumeens of Maulana and Mrs. Mujahid Abbas Rizvi. Surah Al-Mubarakatul Fatiha. There is also a request for Dua Shifa for 5 times for Brother Razi Razvi and Maulana Mujahid. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله لقد جاءت رسل ربنا بالحق الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وبآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وصل على صاحب الدعوة النبوية والسولة الحيدرية والإسمة الفاطمية والحلم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والصبر السجادية وآثار الباقرية ومؤاسر الصادقية وعلوم الكاظمية وحجج رضوية وجود التقوية والنقاوة النقوية والهيبة العسكرية والغيبة إلهية والقائمة بالحق اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم ومحكم كتاب المجيد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة ولنجزينهم أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون Contentment is an empire that shall never diminish. Contentment is a wealth that shall never finish. Sayings such as these are no doubt from the Holy Prophet, from Amirul Mu'mineen, are ones that we've heard many a times. Who doesn't want contentment? We all want it. We're all looking for contentment. However, the word contentment is one that is somewhat elusive. Although we all want it within our lives, but it's something that seems to be somewhat just beyond our reach. And if we go a little bit forward, we all pray for contentment. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, please grant me with al-qana'a. Ya Allah, please grant me with contentment. So how do you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond to such a dua? Does Allah create a warm, fuzzy feeling within our hearts and suddenly the entire world appears to be content for us? Or does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us opportunities so that we're able to practice contentment and al-qana'a within our lives? You see, contentment isn't a temporary mood or a feeling that comes and goes as it pleases, that swings forwards and backwards, that just comes and goes, and it's based on things such as, for example, whether or not I'm having a good day or a bad day, whether or not the weather outside is good to my liking or not to my liking, or whether or not my favorite sports team have won their games. Contentment isn't a temporary feeling that ebbs and goes and comes and goes. However, contentment is a decision that we make to have within our lives. Contentment is a decision that we practice within our lives. It's something that we demonstrate within every action and behavior that we have within a life. And therefore, given that tonight is the night of the martyrdom of the king of Khurasan, Shah Khurasan, Imam Ali bin Musa al-Ridha, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. And one of the titles more famous of Imam al-Ridha is no doubt known as al-Ridha, which means the one who is pleased, the one who is satisfied, the one who is content. And the term, the title al-Ridha is not just a title that he was given by anyone. According to Imam al-Jawad, his son, it's a title that was bestowed upon him by none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And given the night of tonight, the topic of discussion that I have therefore chosen to discuss and title tonight's majlis is titled Contentment, a Decision. Contentment, an proactive thing that we need to have within our lives. And therefore, before we even continue to discuss what we mean when we use the term contentment, if I was to ask anyone in this room, not just in this room, even outside of this room, what's the topmost priority, what's the topmost goal that you and I have within our lives? No doubt, happiness will be at one of the topmost goals that we have in our lives. So the question comes, how is it that I can now go and attain this happiness within my life? Many people will go out looking to acquire happiness, in pursuit of happiness through the pursuit of wealth. The bigger the bank balance that I have, the better the car that I have, the better the house that I have, the more assets that I'm able to accumulate, I will become happy. Others put the pursuit of happiness in the pursuit of their careers. The bigger the job that I have, the better the company that I get, the quicker the promotions that I will get, the bigger the team that I manage, I will become happy. Others put the pursuit of happiness into the pursuits of acquiring things. The latest phone that I have, the latest Jordans, the latest shoes, the latest clothes and fashion that I have, I will acquire happiness. But the question is wealth something that I can acquire happiness? Is it due to my career, or is it through acquiring the things that I have within my life that guarantees happiness? Let me narrate to you, let me share with you a study that was done a couple of years ago. And the professors involved in the study, they took the inflation-adjusted income of the Americans of 1967. So for example, the average median household income of the Americans at the time, inflation-adjusted, was just under $40,000, around $38,771. Only 1 in 5 people had access to a normal color TV. Only 1 in 25 had access to cable TV. Fast forward to 40 years, in 2007. Now, the median inflation-adjusted income of the American household is what? Just over $50,000. Nearly everyone has access to color TV, cable TV. Double the people have now access to a car within their homes. Nearly everyone has computers, iPods, and phones at the time. However, according to those that studied the American households at the time, they realized that they weren't any happier than they were 40 years ago. even though wealth, as they had calculated, was at least 25% higher, inflation adjusted, people were still not necessarily happy, which means that wealth is not the only determinant of happiness. However, I'm sure anyone sitting in this room would like to argue that I'd rather die rich than die poor. Yes, let's agree that wealth is a determinant of our happiness, but not a major determinant of our happiness. For example, there comes a point where the more and more wealth we acquire, there comes a point where the extra pound that I'm earning isn't adding value to my happiness. For those that have studied economy or have understood or are aware of a theory by the name of the diminishing utility of marginal returns, those will realize that for every extra pound or 100 pounds that I have, the increase in my happiness will at one point plateau and it won't increase. But like the argument I made, I'm sure everyone here would like to die rich rather than die poor. And yes, wealth does play a determinant, it does play an important aspect within our happiness, but it's not that of an important thing that we normally give it credit to. For example, there was a study that was performed by 3 professors. Unfortunately, I'm not able to recall their names. They're Polish individuals, but I'm happy to give you the journal articles and the references after the majlis with any other thing that I discuss. However, these 3 professors, I'm going to attempt, Lubrinsky, Sheldon, and someone else. Now, these professors, they say that every single individual within this life has a happiness set point, a chronic level of happiness, a permanent level of happiness, which stays at a static level, at a chronic level. What do we mean? Now, you may say that, no, there are times where I become really happy and I become really sad. Yes. What happens is all of us in our life have this happiness set point. And when we have any major life events within our lives, whether a birth of a family member, whether a death of a family member, whether we get a new job or promotion, whether we lose profits in our business, or whether we gain new profits or any other life events, what happens to our happiness set point temporarily, it will increase or it will decrease temporarily. Whatever goes up must come down. However, the chronic level of happiness, the set point of our happiness, is still determinant and it stays at that level. So the clever thing is, rather than putting my focus into temporary things, like I alluded to earlier, contentment isn't something that is temporary, that comes and goes. Wisdom dictates that I then need to understand what is it that I can do to increase my chronic level of happiness a notch higher. So now these 3 professors, they argue and they bring their hypothesis and their results that there are 3 things that you're able to tamper with your permanent level of happiness. 50% of what is determined with your permanent level of happiness is your genetics, your DNA. This is how you're built. 10%, however, is your external circumstances. This is where your wealth comes in, your bank balance, the job that you have, the things that you acquire. And 40% of your chronic level of happiness is determined by your attitudes, your viewpoint of life. And therefore, now that I want to increase my total level of happiness, there's no point in wasting any effort into the 50%, because practically that is impossible. I can't really change the molecular of my DNA. Therefore, what a lot of people do is they put in a lot of effort and emphasis into the 10% of the external circumstances. Yes, acquiring extra money or wealth or job, etc., will increase our happiness set point, but not so much. And therefore, wisdom dictates that we need to put our efforts, our eggs in the basket that is going to give us 4 times more results than putting it into wealth. And that is our behavior. That is our attitudes. And one of the behaviors that is determining of our happiness is, no doubt, al-qana'a, contentment. The verse of the Holy Quran that I had the honor and the privilege to recite before yourselves is the 97th verse of chapter Surah An-Nahl, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Man amila saliham, whoever does good deed, min dhakarin aw untha, whether male or female, wa huwa mu'minun, as long as they are a believer, wa falanuhyiyannahu hayatan tayyiba, we will surely bless them with a good life, with a happy life. وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُم, and we will certainly reward them بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ, according to the best of their deeds. In Gurahane Kabira, the book of Ayatollah Dastaghaib Shirazi, he narrates that an individual comes in the presence of Amir al-Mu'mineen, or according to another tradition, comes in the presence of Imam al-Sadiq. And he says, Ya Imam, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah An-Nahl in the following verse says, فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةٌ طَيِّبًا, we will surely grant them with a good life, with a happy life. What does hayatun tayyiba mean? The Imam responds with one word and one word alone. Al-qana'a, contentment. And therefore, now we continue with the discussion of what it is we mean when we say contentment. And we look into the lives of the Ahlul Bayt, more so the life of the personality that we've come here to commemorate, and an example from his sons as well. And then we'll come to a discussion whether or not contentment is just another word for being lazy and for having inaction. Nonetheless, we start the discussion with Imam Zainul Abidin. Imam Zainul Abidin was once seated in his place, and a companion by the name of Minhal al-Kufi, a man that we've heard many a times, he comes and he had just purchased a new piece of cloth, a new piece of garment. And when he entered the presence of Imam Zainul Abidin, he says, may my parents be sacrificed for you. Yabna Rasulullah, I noticed that the clothes that you're currently wearing, the garment that you're currently wearing around yourself is one that is quite old. Why don't you take my new piece of garment? I've just purchased it and I'd like to gift it to you. The Imam says, Minhal, look, we the Ahlul Bayt, we're not necessarily fond of fashion or decorations. What we have is sufficient for us. The reason why I have this piece of cloth is that it protects me from the heat and from the rain and from the cold. And therefore, for my purposes, this is more than enough for me. And why do I take something out of someone else that they may need it a lot more than me? So, oh Minhal, thank you, but we the Ahlul Bayt are happy with what we have. And one of the first lessons that we take from this story of contentment from Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam was not only he's thinking about the others, but he's content with the life that he has, in the sense that he knows what his purpose is. You see, his purpose, he understands, is not to live in this world forever, to hoard, to gather wealth, to gather your assets. He knows that at the end of the day, I'm going to leave this world, and what's going to count is my actions and my good deeds afterwards. And hence, we come to a story of Imam al-Ridha that fits beautifully. And given that it is the night of Imam al-Ridha, I would like to present this beautiful story. Once, a companion by the name of Sulaiman bin Ja'far enters the vicinity of where Imam al-Ridha was sitting. Now at this time, Imam al-Ridha is already the heir apparent of the entire kingdom. And if you imagine the rulers of the time, they would live lavishly. They would not just have one palace. They would have a palace in Baghdad, they would have a palace in Medina, they would have a palace in Kufa, and so on and so forth. So when this individual by the name of Sulaiman bin Ja'far enters where the Imam is seated, he looks around the Imam and he sees that the Imam is sitting at a very simple manner, and he says, "Oh Imam, you are the heir apparent of this entire Islamic kingdom, but yet nothing of royalty can be seen in the place that you're living." So the Imam says, "Oh Sulaiman, what do you expect from a man, from an individual above whom death is hovering above?" Sulaiman says, "Fine, very well, yeah, we're all going to die, but still there should be something of royalty that's in your house. Nothing is of royalty." The Imam says, "Look, all I need is in front of me. I need a container for vinegar, I need my clothes, I need a mat, I need so-and-so utensils, that's all I need." But Sulaiman was adamant, "Mawla, still there is nothing to be seen." The Imam says, "Look, Sulaiman," and this is the line that I'd like to focus the next few minutes on. He says, "Look, I'm not here to rule amongst the people, I'm here to serve the people." The purpose of the Imam to accept this heir apparency of this entire Islamic kingdom was not so that he is to become a ruler, he is to become an emperor of the Islamic empire. His role was to serve the people so that they're able to get their rights that were taken away from them. And this here gives us a very beautiful lesson of contentment. That you see, what contentment helps us do is puts our life in focus. If you know that I have a purpose, then contentment helps me put my energy into that focus. What do I mean? We've just had results in August. So for those of us that had results, inshallah, you did really, really well. And I'm sure it's not really far away from the nervousness that we all had when we were doing our exams. Now, I'd like you to take your imagination back to the time when you were taking your exams. Imagine you're in a room full of students. Everyone's nervous. Everyone's tummy is rumbling. The invigilator looks at the clock. The clock strikes 9 and he says, your time starts now. And so you listen, everyone just flipping over their pages, trying to write as frantically as they can, whatever comes into their mind. Now, from the corner of your eye, as soon as you're writing, from the corner of your eye, you can't help but notice there's an individual on your right that is taking out the best looking pen you have ever seen. And you are like, wow, what a beautiful pen. And whilst he is flaunting his pen, the other person on the left takes out his pen, gold-plated this time, but he also takes out a pencil like you've never seen before. And these two individuals start flaunting their stationery. And the guy in front of you takes out his pencil case and starts flaunting their highlighters and rulers and stencils and all sorts. And here you are looking at the clock, trying to frantically write anything that comes to your mind. And again, the 90 minutes are up and the invigilator comes and takes everyone's paper. What happens is whilst these people were busy flaunting their pens, they forgot that the purpose that they had come into the exam was not to show off their pens or pencils or pencil case, but it was to do the best that they can. In fact, flaunting their wealth at that time was something that was detriment to their exams. Now, this example may seem a bit trivial, a bit basic, a bit simple, but now flip these 90 minutes of the exam to the 70 or 90 years that we have within our lives. And suddenly, things come into practice. Things come into perspective. Sometimes what happens is we're busy showing off the business that I've now created for myself, the assets that I've required, the new car that I've now purchased, or the house that I've built. And in the rat race, we sometimes forget that the purpose that I have in my life is much greater than showing off the wealth that I have been blessed with and I've tried to acquire so rigorously. And so the lesson that we get from al-qana'a, al-contentment, is not just that it puts things into perspective, but it helps us focus on things that are more important within our lives. And we continue with our conversation. This was an example from Imam Ridha that just brings everything in perspective. This is why we should have contentment in our life. However, Imam Muhammad al-Taqi al-Jawad, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, again, he was also an individual that was within the palaces of the Abbasid caliphs. Again, an individual comes and he says, Ya Imam, oh my master, again, there is nothing that I can see of royalty that is within your house. And here, the Imam gives us a different glimpse of what it means to be content. Here, the Imam says, look, we, the Ahlul Bayt, are content with whatever we have, and we do not allow covetousness, we do not allow hirs, we do not allow greed to come into within our lives. And so the third thing that is very beautiful when it comes to contentment is not just that it puts our focus in our life where it matters the most, whether it's endeavoring for this world or the hereafter, but it also takes us away from something that is going to be detriment to our lives, which is greed. Now, there's obviously greed of good things such as knowledge, but when we usually say greed, we mean greed of things that is like a spiritual black hole within our lives. Something that takes us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, something that just makes us forget and get into the rat race and forget what my true purpose is. You see, Imam as-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, has been quoted to have said that if the son of Adam was to have two pieces, two valleys full of gold and full of silver, then the son of Adam would long for a third one, and a fourth, and a fifth. And nothing will satisfy the son of Adam, you and I, other than dust. Which means, in the rat race that we live within our lives, nothing's going to satisfy us until and unless we are filled with dust and we go 6 feet under. And the opposite of contentment, therefore, is therefore greed. And so, a quick thing here when we mention about greed, Imam al-Baqir, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, has said that greed is like a silkworm that wraps himself around in such a way that it gets too late for him to come out of. And similarly, when we're in the rat race of getting the next promotion, buying our bigger house, getting the bigger balance, it comes to a point where we're so much focused in this small perspective that we have that we go so deep into spiritual black hole that it's difficult for us to come back out. Now, the argument might be, I'm just trying to get my sustenance, right? It's not necessarily greed. There's a difference between greed, and this is a judgment that we make ourselves. We're the best judge of our lives. There's a difference between greed and there's a difference between sustenance. Rasulullah has said that sustenance follows a man more intensely than death does, which means that a person is not going to leave and depart from this world until and unless he has had his last morsel, until he has had his last rizq. However, there is a difference between greed and there's a difference between contentment. However, we then get to a point, another question, another challenge that might come is, okay, you know what? I'm going to be content in all aspects of my life, starting off with my sins. Well, of course, that is guna, there is shirk in itself. You can't say, I'm going to be content with my sins. It doesn't work like that. However, you may go a step further. An individual may say, you know what? I'm going to be content with whatever grades I get in school. I'm not necessarily going to work for it, but I'm going to be happy about it. Or, for example, I'm going to be happy with the body that I have. I'm not really going to look out for my diet. I'm not going to really go gym or anything like that. I'm going to be content with whatever body I have. Or, for example, he might say, I'm going to be content or satisfied with the relationships that I have at my house. I don't necessarily need to try hard to improve my relationships. I'm just going to be content with the relationships that I have. Is this contentment? Is this satisfaction? No. This is nothing but another word for being lazy, for having inaction within our lives. And this brings us to a very beautiful story of Rijalul Haq. Many people may have heard about this. For my younger brothers and sisters, I'd like to quickly go over it. Amirul Mu'mineen, when he was in Kufa, he enters the mosque. And he sees a group of people that are reciting the Holy Quran. And then he looks towards another direction and he sees a group of people that are praying Salat. Another group of people that are having a conversation and discussion and debates about the religion of Islam. Then he looks at a group of people that were just staring at the wall aimlessly, just looking here and there. So the Imam says, who are these individuals that are doing nothing? So he was told, these are individuals that call themselves Rijalul Haq. So Imam says, what does that mean? They say that we are those individuals that practice patience, we practice contentment, and we practice satisfaction. If we are given food, we happily take it. And if we don't have any food, we practice contentment, we practice patience. Imam says, Bal antum muta'akkib, you are worse than the dogs of Kufa. The dogs of Kufa are the same. You throw them a piece of bone, they'll jump at it. And if you don't throw a piece of bone, they'll just wait there, sit patiently. And the Imam orders that these individuals known as Rijalul Haq are to be dispersed straight away. And that every individual is meant to go out and start working for their own sustenance and start working for their own livelihood. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah An-Najm, chapter number 53, verse number 39, says, وَأَنْ لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانَ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى, and that man shall attain nothing except for what he strives for, except for what he struggles for. In the following verse, verse number 40, he says, وَأَنَّ سَعْيَهُ سَوْفَ يُرَى, and that whatever effort that you exert, whatever effort that you show, that is seen, that is noticed. And so we understand when we come to our lives, there is a point where we practice contentment, but we don't let a contentment cloud our judgment of just being lazy, of just accepting whatever we see in our lives. You can't just turn around and say, you know what, I'm going to be content with the oppression that is rife in the society. Contentment doesn't work like that. Contentment works in the way that you are given a set of skills. You work to to hone your skills, earn your livelihood, try to progress yourself, your family, your community within this life, and then the result, you leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whatever the result is, you are content with the result. But that doesn't mean you stop exerting effort in your life, which is similarly when we get to Aba Abdullah, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he says a very beautiful line on the event of Karbala. He says, my Lord, I have done whatever I needed to. Now I leave the result for you. Your and my task is to show effort. Your and my task is to work in this world. The results we leave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a very beautiful point to bring our conversation to conclusion, inshallah, we will go to the musibah of tonight. Once, a companion by the name of Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari, who had of course seen the time of the Holy Prophet all the way until the 5th Holy Imam, and he comes to the Holy Imam, and they say, Salamun alaykum wa alaykum salam. And so the Imam asks, oh Jabir, how are you? So Jabir says, my Imam, I'm at a point where I give more preference to old age rather than young. I give preference to illness rather than good health. I give preference to death over life. The Imam turns around and he says, Jabir, no, change your answer. Rather, I say that if Allah gives me old age, then I am happy with old age. If He gives me youth, then I am happy with that. If He gives me illness, then I am content with that. And if He gives me good health, then I am happy with that. If He gives me death, then so be it. Then if He gives me life, then I am also happy with that. And at that point, Jabir says one of his more famous words, and he says, the Holy Prophet Rasulullah had told me that I'm going to see the 5th of his representative. Oh Jabir, when you see him, pass my salams. And Jabir does whatever he was instructed to. And so we got to the point where we'll now summarize of what we have discussed for today. We started off our discussion titled Contentment in honor of the martyrdom of Imam al-Ridha, who has been given the title by none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as al-Ridha, which means the one who is content, the one who is satisfied with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we tried to understand that contentment isn't a temporary feeling that can come and go depending on external factors. Rather, contentment is a mindset, it's an attitude, it's a behavior that we need to practice within our lives. And like anything, it starts small, it starts consciously, and slowly, slowly it gets to our subconscious mind. And we also tried and discussed whether wealth is a major determinant of illness, and we tried and presented two scientific researchers, and we got to the conclusion that, yeah, we'd rather die rich, but wealth is still a very small 10% of our normal happiness. And then we went on to discuss the 3 lessons from Imam Zain al-Abidin, from Imam al-Ridha, which was, of course, purpose in our life, and contentment helps us focus on that purpose. And finally, Imam Muhammad Taqi al-Jawad, and how he showed us the opposite of contentment is hirs or greed. And the thing is, when we get contentment, Imam Amirul Mu'mineen says, Al-Qana'atu Izza. Contentment is izzah. Contentment is honor. Because when you are greedy, then all you're doing in the society is looking, how can I make the next quick buck? How can I do this? How can I shorthand him? Whereas when you are content, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen says, contentment is izzah. And the beauty of this contentment is that it is not of this world, it is a spiritual thing in nature. Imam Ali alayhi salam also says from Gurar al-Hikam, al-qana'atun ni'ma. Contentment is a ni'mah, it's a blessing, not necessarily of this world, but of the heavenly blessing. It's a spiritual blessing. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in light of the personality that we have come to commemorate today. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase in our contentment, in our satisfaction, and to allow that contentment not to transform into laziness or inaction, but allows us to excel in this world and in the hereafter and be happy with the results that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us. Brothers and sisters, the musibah of tonight that we have come to commemorate, the musibah of tonight that we have all gathered here is that of the king of Khurasan, is that of Shah Khurasan. And although the Imam is lovingly known as Shah Khurasan, although the Imam is lovingly known as the king of Khurasan by his believers and his followers, one of the more pertinent laqabs, one of the more pertinent titles of the Imam is also Gharib al-Ghuraba. The Imam that is the furthest away from his hometown, the Imam that is the furthest away from the city of his grandfather, the city of his forefathers. Brothers and sisters, Imam Ali bin Musa al-Ridha would always place great emphasis when it comes to the musibah of Baab-Ul-Ilm. Many a times he would hold a majalis within his house. Many a times he would invite poets to recite eulogies, marthiyas, to recite noha in honor of his grandfather Baab-Ul-Ilm. One such poet, one such eulogizer was by the name of Di'bal al-Khuzai, and he would recite marthiyah and lamentations for the Imam Ali bin Musa al-Ridha. Once when Imam al-Ridha was in Marv, when he was in Khurasan, Di'bal approaches him and he says, Yabna Rasulallah, I have written a piece of poetry that I have sworn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I have said, Ya Allah, I am not going to read this poetry to anyone except that I first read it to the Imam of my time. And so Imam al-Ridha says, oh Di'bal, continue please. And Di'bal starts eulogizing and praising the household of the Ahlul Bayt. He says, these are the household of the prophets, these are the households of Salah and Siyam. And then Di'bal, he continues eulogizing each and every member of the Ahlul Bayt. He talks about Amirul Mu'mineen, he talks about Imam al-Hassan, and then there comes a point where he gets to Imam al-Hussein and he says, oh Fatima, how I wish you were present on the plains of Karbala. You would have seen that your son lies bare on the plains of Karbala with no coffin and under the scorching sun. Oh Fatima, if you are there, you would have seen what has happened to your Hussein, and you would have slapped your chest and you would have slapped your face in grief out of it. Oh Fatima, weep, cry and lament over your son. And then he goes to Imam Zainul Abidin and then to Al-Baqir, to As-Sadiq, until he reaches his own father Imam Al-Kadhim, and he says, oh grief upon that grave in Baghdad. Oh Musa Al-Kadhim, what a calamity he had. And then he ends his poetry. Imam Ali bin Musa al-Ridha says, oh Di'bal, do you allow me to add to your poetry? He says, my Imam, it would be my honor. And so the Imam says, add the following two lines. He says, and there shall be a grave in Tus, a grave that will have many a musibah until the time that Al-Qa'im returns into this world. De'bal says, Master, I know of no such grave in Tus. Whose grave is it that's in Tus? Imam says, oh De'bal, this is the grave of your Imam. This is the grave of myself that I'm going to be buried in Tus. Azadarane Imam Madlum Karbala, Azadarane Imam Shah Khurasan, آج ہم یہاں جمع ہوئے ہیں امام علی بن موسیٰ الرضا کی وفات منانے کے لیے، ان کی شہادت منانے کے لیے۔ ایک جو لقب ہے نا امام رضا کا، اسے ہے وہ ہے غریب الغرباء۔ غریب کہتے ہیں جو تنہا ہو، جو اکیلا ہو، جو اپنے وطن سے بہت دور ہوتا ہے نا، اسے غریب الوطن کہتے ہیں۔ امام کا ایک لقب ہے غریب الغرباء، لیکن امام فقط دور ہی نہیں بلکہ تنہا بھی ہے، اکیلے بھی ہے۔ مولا علی علیہ السلام کے پاس حضرت آدم ہے، حضرت نوح ہے، انبیاء مدفون ہے امام علی علیہ السلام کی بارگاہ میں۔ حسین علیہ السلام کے پاس اصغر ہے، اکبر ہے، قاسم ہے۔ امام کاظم کے پاس امام جواد ہے، امام نقی کے پاس امام حسن عسکری ہے۔ جنت البقیع میں 4 امام اکٹھے ہیں، لیکن ہائے امام علی بن موسیٰ الرضا جو دور بھی ہے اور اکیلے بھی ہے، جو دور بھی ہے اور تنہا بھی ہے۔ بس ایک مرتبہ جب دیبل نے اپنا مرثیہ پڑھا نا کہ ایک قبر نجف میں اشرف میں ہے، ایک قبر بغداد میں ہے اور 4 قبر جنت البقیع میں ہے، تو ایک مرتبہ امام کہتے ہیں میں جملے میں اضافہ کر دوں، یہ بھی کہہ دو وَقَبْرٍ بِتُوسٍ یا لہا من مصیبہ، ایک قبر توس میں ہے جو بڑے مصیبتیں کھائے ہیں اور اس وقت تک مصیبتیں پڑتے رہیں گے جب تک ہمارا مہدی ظہور نہیں کر لیتا۔ ہاں عزیزان گرامی، آج آپ کو پرسہ دینا ہے، سیدہ کو پرسہ دینا ہے، امام زمانہ کو پرسہ دینا ہے۔ آج مشہد مقدس میں سبھی طرف رہے ہیں، سیدہ موجود ہے، آباد کس طرح سے یہ چمن فاطمی ہوا، کس کی نظر لگی یہ گھر ماتمی ہوا۔ عزیزان گرامی، سیدہ کے علاوہ، امام زمانہ کے علاوہ ایک اور شخصیت ہے جنہیں آپ کو ایک پرسہ دینا ہے، اور وہ شخصیت ہے بی بی معصومہ قم۔ مدینے سے نکلی تھی بڑی امید لے کے، بڑی حسرتیں سے کہ مجھے اپنے بھائی سے ملنا ہے، لیکن وہ امید ٹوٹ گئی۔ عزیزان گرامی، شہادت پیش کرنا چاہتا ہوں۔ ایک مرتبہ امام رضا کو ایک پیغام ملا کہ معمون دعوت دیتا ہے اپنے محل میں۔ بس جیسے ہی امام رضا نکل رہے تھے نا اپنے گھر سے، تو ایک صحابی تھا ابا سلط کہہ کے، ایک کہتا ہے مولا آپ اس وقت اس اضطراب میں کیوں ہے؟ مولا نے کہا اے ابا سلط سمجھ جاؤ، اگر میں جب واپس لوٹتا ہوں نا مأمون کے محل سے، اگر میرے ہاتھ میں رومال ہو اور وہ رومال میں نے چہرے میں رکھا ہے تو سمجھ لینا میرا کلیجہ کٹ رہا ہے، تو سمجھ لینا میرا کلیجہ کٹ رہا ہے۔ تو ابا سلط کہتے ہیں مولا کیا آپ کی کچھ آخری وصیتیں ہیں کہ آپ کو غسل و کفن کون دے گا؟ مولا فرماتے ہیں کہ معصوم کا غسل و کفن فقط معصوم ہی دے سکتا ہے، لیکن انہوں نے کہا مولا آپ کا تو فرزند وہ مدینے میں ہے، محمد تقی تو ابھی مدینے میں ہے۔ مولا کہتے ہیں وہ حجت خدا ہے، جب میری موت ہوگی تو میرا بیٹا، میرا فرزند یہاں پہ آ جائے گا، بس جب وہ آئے نا تو اسے میرا سلام کہہ دینا کہ تیرا بابا تجھے بہت یاد کر رہا تھا۔ اللہ اکبر۔ عزیزان گرامی، ہر باپ کی حسرت ہوتی ہے کہ جب میرا آخری وقت ہونا تو میرا سر میرے بیٹے کے زانوں پہ ہو، میرا بیٹا مجھ سے پیار کر رہا ہو اور میں اس دنیا سے ایسے ہی انداز میں رحلت کر جاؤ، لیکن اللہ ہمارا دل و دماغ کربلا میں جاتا ہے۔ مولا حسین کا سر ہے، کربلا کی تپتی ہوئی ریت اور شمر کا خنجر ہے۔ अल्लाहु अकबर। बस एक मर्तबा इमाम वापस आते हैं मामून के महल से, इमाम के हाथों में रमाल है, रमाल चेहरे में है। अबा सल्त समझ गए, पूछना चाहते थे। इमाम ने इशारों से कहा, ए अबा सल्त मुझसे अब बातें मत करो, मेरा कलेजा कट रहा है, ये रुमाल को देखो खून से रंगीन हो चुका है। बस एक मर्तबा इमाम रदा अपने हुजरे में जाते हैं, इबादत में मशगूल होते हैं। एक मर्तबा अबा सल्त दरवाजे बंद कर देते हैं। क्या देखा कि एक शख्सियत वहां से वारिद होती है। कहते हैं कि आप कौन हैं और कहां से आए हुए हैं? फरमाया, क्या तुम्हें मेरे बाबा ने नहीं फरमाया था मैं मोहम्मद तकी, आओ मुझे पुरसा दो, मेरे बाबा अभी इस दुनिया से रहलत कर गए, आओ मुझे पुरसा दो, मेरे बाबा शहीद हो गए। अजीजाने गिरामी, इमाम रदा का लक़ब है ना शाह खुरासान। मौला का जनाजा बड़ी ताजीम से उठा था, बहुत सारे लोग थे। मौला मोहम्मद तकी ने बहुत ही अदब व एहतराम से गुस्ल तलफन दिया था। बस एक मर्तबा लहद में उतारना चाहते हैं। एक मर्तबा इमाम मोहम्मद तकी अपने बाबा को लहद में उतारना चाहते हैं। एक रोक के जुमला कह दूं, एक मर्तबा जब सैयद सज्जाद अपने बाबा के आज़ा को जमा कर रहे थे ना, तो बनु असद कहते हैं कि आप क्या कर रहे हैं? तो इमाम सज्जाद फरमाते हैं कि आशूर के दिन, असरे आशूर, घोड़ों ने मेरे बाबा के बदन पर ऐसे पामाल कर दिया कि मेरे बाबा के आज़ा फैल गए। मैं अपने बाबा के आज़ा जमा करने की कोशिश कर रहा हूं। अला लअनतुल्लाहि अलल कौमिज़ ज़ालिमीन, इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन, रज़म बिक़ज़ाइहि व तस्लीमन लिअम्रिhi. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept whatever little that we had to offer. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to inculcate the lesson of contentment from the life of Imam al-Rada. And finally, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of the 12th Imam. And when he does come, so that we are also part of his ashab and his ansar. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أحسنت. أضم الله رجورنا ورجوركم إن شاء الله. So we're just going to give a little update, a little presentation regarding an ongoing project here in Baab-Ul-Ilm, the Al-Ma'id Edible Project, Edible Garden Project. So when we get the TV screens going, inshallah. Okay, so we're going to just do a full recap. So maybe some of you haven't been fully aware, so we'll just bring you back up to speed. So we're going to start with a quote. This is a professor in Stanford University, and he talks about there being facing for the first time the collapse of a global civilization. So we're on a tipping point in the world, something that we need to take quite seriously. Next one, if we can. So the aims of the project are urban regeneration and increasing biodiversity with some certain techniques, educating community members on the importance of biodiversity and gardening self-sufficiency, and providing food for community members and local food networks during the cost of living crisis. So these are the aims as we developed the project. Last year, I think we dug the garden up. I think it was about a year ago almost. Yeah. Next one, Adnan. So talk about Baab-Ul-Ilm. So we'll take you back a year. So this is what it looked like in the back. And then if everybody remembers this tree, there was a telephone number in it. We thought it was very interesting. There had to be something going on in there. So thank you to the hardworking members of the community. We dug it out and we found a clothing bank. So that's just told you the state of the garden that had eaten away a clothing bank. So we gave it a really good debridement. We really cleaned it out. And then we measured it, and we realized we had quite a lot of space to work with. So we ran a small competition, and Sumaya by Per by Ladik actually was the winner of the competition. And so she kind of gave us this sketch, which we then converted into a 3D model for helping us to kind of appreciate where and what the garden could look like. A couple of slides here. One more for us, one more, and we'll stop there. So then we decided, okay, let's get serious. So let's see actually what's it going to take to turn the Baab-Ul-Ilm into something like that. So we brought a landscape architect on board. Next one for us, Adnan. And we had this sketch done. So this is a formal look at the garden. And we realized that this is just, I think, first draft. But we realized there's a lot of space in the garden of unused area. So this was the end of the summer, and then we had a topological survey done, and we realized that there's actually quite a lot of space going right the way to the front that we could potentially utilize upon. And actually, a project like this is going to take a lot of money. And at this point, Samahad Sheikh went to Iraq on his sabbatical, so we took a break, and then he came back. And then we've been super busy, and we've been trying to get the project back up again. So then we realized the project is so big, we're going to have to split it into two parts, phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is the front, and phase 2 is the back. So let's talk about phase 1. So if we remember, this is what it looked like last week, and that's what it looks like now. So basically, we've ripped up half of the foliage and the green. We got rid of the unsightly elements. If we do remember, we had 2 trees fall on the Baab, so the Baab was repaired twice. So it probably should have gone before then, but anyway, alhamdulillah, at least it won't happen a third time. We can promise you that. And then we realized, actually, we could probably turn this into something very nice. And so obviously we've had, I found this, by the way, 166, the bungalow. So that's been hidden away, I think, for about 20 years. So it's amazing what you find. Anyway, so we're grateful to Ghulam Abbas' uncle, who this morning gave up quite a lot of his time, and Qurat auntie, who's been giving her time. So we've been to some nurseries this morning, tree nurseries, mind. So we've had a little look. We found a number of, go back one for us, Adnan, if you can, thank you. So actually found a zaytun, olive tree, and a fig tree, tin and zaytun. We thought that's a fantastic pairing for the Baab. Go across one, Adnan. Thank you. And then we found some palm trees, some aces on the right. That lovely tree in the middle, I forgot its name. The very nice looking one, which you told me the name and I forgot the name. But I'll tell you the name later. So what we've realized is actually not only can we fulfill our aims, but we can also make it look really nice. So that we can be very proud of a lovely center on the street. The street can look at us and say, what a beautiful place, instead of looking at it and saying, what an ugly place. So we can all win in the project, basically. And that's where we are at the minute. This weekend, you'll see some more work going on. The front will be fully cleared and ready. And now let's talk about how you guys can get involved in the project. So how do we get involved? Oh, you're too fast there, Adnan. You're ruining it. So support phase 1. So we're going to be cleaning the brick. We're going to be painting the railings, painting the gate, really looking after it. To be confirmed, but maybe next Saturday during madrasa. So if you have an hour or 2 spare, come do some jet washing, do some painting. Really just make Baab-Ul-Ilm look nice. And the planting session, again, too fast, Adnan? Planting session is to be confirmed, but we're thinking end of September or early October after madrasa. So it'd be really good to get the kids involved, finish, give a couple of hours, and do some planting. So we really need your help for the planting session. And as soon as we know the right date, we'll update everybody. But it'd be really great for all of you to come down. Inshallah, we'd like to see if we can invite the councillor, invite our neighbours, have a really good time planting something, make the place look really beautiful. So we'll update you on that in the next week, I would say. Thank you, Adnan. You can sponsor the plants and the trees for the thawab of your marhumin, and we know there's a very strong hadith talking about ongoing thawab for your marhumin if animals or birds or humans feed from the plants. Now, we've estimated the total cost to be £1,000. £200 has already been sponsored before I walked in the door. There's only £800 we need to sponsor. So you're talking £20 or £30 per family. So it's very reasonable. We'll have a lovely plaque made afterwards with all the name of the marhumin. And I think it's a really good way for the community to engage in the project. And we will send some messages out, and we really hope you can give a little bit of money. I know it's difficult. We have a cost of living crisis, so everything is up. But if you can save your few coffees in 1 week, I spent £3 on a coffee today. I couldn't believe it. So save £3 on your coffee and support the project. And it's something you can see every time you come to the Baab. You see a lovely front area. It'd be really worth it. They get done. And then support phase 2, which is probably going to be end of the year 2024. We're just applying for some funding now from some external groups. Inshallah, we'll use phase 1 as an example to back the grant for phase 2. So if we get phase 2, inshallah, we hope it'll be fully funded. It's going to cost maybe £30,000 to £40,000. And then we just want to get your engagement with your feedback, your ideas, your time. And we'll update you more on that as we move through to 24. But for the minute, support phase 1. So get in touch. Yes, Uncle.
People don't necessarily have to contribute £30.
No.
Say an olive tree to be sold for about £80.
Absolutely.
So someone says, I'll buy an olive tree.
Absolutely, great point. So you could pay what you want. I mean, absolutely. So the olive trees were beautiful, by the way. We went to the nursery. You could buy 1 or 2 olive trees at £80. You could buy a palm tree. We're going to have some palm trees, inshallah. Or fig trees, and potentially some apple trees. We had to look. There's basically all trees. So whatever you like, we can get it with your family fruit. So it's something, and you know, next year they'll be fruiting. So you can come and take one and enjoy it. And that's Sadaqah Jariyah right there for your marhumin. So you're going to hear more from us soon, inshallah, on the WhatsApp group. Please get involved, give us your feedback. I think we really want to know, you know, the project's really developed, and we're very grateful to, again, Ghulam Abbas uncle and Qurat auntie who've given their time, their thoughts, and helped to drive the project forward. And so your thoughts are equally as important. Yes? Yes, so phase 1 is purely at the front. So we've got the inside and the outside of the boundary. Inside is going to be shrubs and trees. The outside is going to be a flower bed.
These trees are not necessarily big trees. That's why I'm going to say, are they going to be the same problem we had?
No.
An olive tree, it would take years to reach that height, an olive tree. And then you can keep it in check. Keep it at a certain height, all the plants we put in plant.
No, there's no more trees going to fall on Baab, I'll guarantee that. No, don't worry. No, we're not going to let it happen under my watch. No, inshallah, it's just, there's the visual, but also the practical. So, you know, we've got a maintenance plan, we've got some great people, and we're going to have knowledge transfer. So those skills are going to pass to the younger generation. That's why we want to get them involved. And these hardworking young boys and girls will be supporting the project moving forward.
We would really appreciate sponsors for which is the other tree we talked about,
The Acer.
starting now at the beginning.
Oh, the palm trees.
Palm trees, because they are quite expensive, £300 about each, and they are massive, but they are beautiful. So at the entrance, I think we should have the palm trees.
Definitely. So if you're feeling generous, we need palm trees in the Baab. Inshallah. Well, you know, we're going to keep you up to date with it all, and we're going to final cost everything as well. But, you know, it would be a great pleasure to see you working hard, get some sweats on some brows. We'll make you some Korja tea. Everybody wins, eh?
If you see that post there, that pillar, so just along there, we are thinking of putting the palm tree there, right at the entrance.
Oh, they won't last more. Don't worry. They'll be gone by tomorrow.
That's where we want to put the palm.
Yeah, inshallah. I mean, I must say already it looks a lot better. Yeah? It does. See Rasul Bhai? When it's got to go, it's got to go. Even the Prophet had to go. The trees had to go. Oh, now we're on fire here. Now we're on Absolutely. Right. Manager's right there. Well, got it, auntie, if you're there, inshallah, you've got your job cut out. No, but, I mean, come see us, come see Ghulam Abbas' uncle, come see Rasul Bhai or myself. Wow. This is deep. But inshallah, we really do want to see your engagement and your thoughts. It's not even, we don't just want your money, we want your money. I'll tell it now, but we want your thoughts. Your thoughts are really important. How do we develop the project? Particularly phase 2. It's a massive project, so we have a lot of scope.
And along the wall, we have to put the wall is meant to face the wall. We want to, the thing of putting up some hanging baskets.
Oh, yeah.
Those are not big.
So there's a lot going on, inshallah. Okay, so I will pass it back, inshallah, with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أزور سيدي ومولاي ومعتمدي ورجائي وذخري وذخيرتي في دنياي وآخرتي، مولاي ومولى الثقلين ونور العينين